Okay, so as I mentioned today on the show, we are being joined by special education attorney Bonnie Yates. She is with the law offices, the Tollner law offices, and they work in the entire state of California. I believe that they have some services in Nevada, and I know that they have services in Arizona as well. Bonnie is here to sort of broaden our knowledge about what our rights are. And I believe that she is here with us. And Traven, if you want to tell her, she can go ahead and start her camera and join us. We adore Bonnie and are thrilled that we get the opportunity to be with her on a weekly basis. There she is. How are you, madam? Oh, you're muted. And she's gone. She's changing the lighting. We'll have her back in just a second. But doesn't it look pretty out that window? You always have the best views, Bonnie.
Well, this is my view from a room that I'm lucky enough to occupy in my daughter's house. And she lives in a pretty area where there's lots of huge trees and nice noises of wind moving through trees and things like that.
And am I correct that you are in fact on the East Coast then today?
Yeah, I'm being a grandma for as long as I can get away with it.
And we were just talking about how there are some things that we will look back fondly on this period of time. And because of this distance, you're able to keep doing your job, but be sitting underneath your grandbaby. What a wonderful gift out of all of the other muck.
Yeah, completely.
I love that you're enjoying it because there's no time like the present.
Yeah, no, he's delicious. Anyway, so did we have questions today?
We don't have questions today, and I want to say I think it's a combination of two things. What I'm hearing from parents is that they're in this first honeymoon period with their schools, and they're waiting to see how it actually goes. They're taking your advice, they're documenting things,
right?
And that IEPs are going to start up next week. And so I think that we're going to have more questions as that revs up. But also we're having Temple Grandin on tomorrow, so people have been sending questions in for her. So I apologize that I do not have questions.
Now, is my background still too dark?
It goes in and out, Bonnie. Right now we've got you. It just depends on how we
moving it around. I think this is a bad place for me to sit. That's my
when you're too far away, it looks like you're in the witness protection program.
I am moving. If this works any better.
That's much better. Much better.
Yeah, but I gotta read off of another screen, so that's the problem. Okay, let's get organized. So first of all
right,
why are we here? We're here because people who have children with disabilities need to be educated in the system that they'll be participating in from the time their child is first diagnosed till the time their child either graduates from high school or achieves the age of 22. So Tollner Law Offices is an 8-attorney firm based in San Jose, Los Angeles, and Orange County. And courtesy of Tollner Law Offices, I try to come on and talk to all the autism-live parents about issues that I hope will educate them about how to best negotiate a robust array of services for your child, whether it's through the school district or regional center. And there's a lot of information on our website, so you can Google Tollner Law Offices if you want. And obviously too, we try to share stuff with you after the show. There's, if there's things we want you to read, Shannon's been really good about disseminating that stuff. So I think last week we talked about the Norris school district case in California, which said in essence that if the district doesn't give you prior written notice and you try their distance learning plan and you try to work with them and your child can't access the services and you make a demand for in-person services and the district can't fulfill that, then it might be incumbent upon the district to actually pay for those services that the child is missing through a non-public school or agency. What I'm finding when I interact with parents and I'm trying to prepare them for an IEP meeting, which they might be attending on their own, people are really good at telling me that the distance learning isn't working. But what you need to do is you need to have a meaningful period of engagement, perhaps a couple of months, where you're actually troubleshooting with the district and trying to make it work and documenting what happens. But the other thing is people are saying, oh, the distance learning doesn't work for me. My kid just really spaces out. I mean, that's not going to cut it. It's got to be a really factual, almost like taking data, in 5-minute blocks. Okay, so first when he tried to tune into the screen, he started, when he was supposed to attend, he started humming instead. Then I redirected him, and 30 seconds later, he started picking at his fingernails. I mean, it really has to be um, data driven, because what they're doing is they're coming into the Zoom meetings and they're saying, well, we think this is working fine. And like one teacher said, the mom said, well, I think the student's really behind in this class and he's not accessing the work. And the teacher said, well, actually, he corrected me on a sloppy mistake that I made. You know, so just like in the IEP land of old, now that administrators have gotten their feet wet with the technology and the process, they're coming in and doing the same old, which is saying that this is working just fine, and your kid's doing, really well with this. So you know, that's just something that is going to require a huge amount of energy from parents to really effectively document, but there's not any other way around it. So
Do you think, Bonnie, and forgive me if this is a ridiculous question, but
I don't think there are any.
well, I'm not sure, but I feel like there's a difference in the expectations, and that people aren't disclosing what their expectations are. That, as a parent, my son, as far as I'm aware, my son is entitled to a free appropriate public education, and that just because we're in COVID, that we shouldn't, we don't have an expectation of less. I understand that it's harder, but I feel like what I'm hearing from some people is that teachers and districts have said, look, this year is going to kind of be a wash, and we're not giving the expectation that our kids are going to access the full curriculum of what would normally have planned, the standards that we normally have planned for even our neurotypical kiddos. And the special ed kids are like that there's no expectation that we're going to make progress this year. Are you feeling that, or is that just
Well,
me?
that's not what the federal government is saying the district's obligation is. And did you share the Norris school district case with people?
We have not shared that, and I apologize. We need to
Well,
get
I
on.
think that that's an important case for people to read, because what it does in part is it gives you the history between March and now, in terms of what the state of California did in response to what the federal government told them. And the things that the federal government told California would apply equally in the other 49 states. And they basically said, look, you may not be able to provide distance learning. I mean, you may not be able to implement the IEP in the same way as you would have if you were actually in a classroom face to face with these students. But you still have an obligation to offer, a free appropriate public education and implement the IEP to the best of your ability via either distance measures, bringing students in to a school site to work with them one-on-one, or paying other people who can come into the home if you district aren't willing or able to send your personnel in to do the face-to-face services. So I think, okay, look, the reality is, and this is just my opinion, and it's not even really a legal opinion, it's a life opinion. Okay,
Got it.
the reality is there is a pandemic, and if you get COVID and you're my age, you got a good chance of dying. So that's a reality on the ground. And I don't know, how young people have to be to not be worried about dying. But obviously, there are a bunch of teachers out there that are worried about dying and don't really want to be forced back until they're comfortable to be in a teaching environment. And so you have on one hand that you have the tension of what the federal government is telling people, teachers and public school administrators that they have to do. And then on the other hand, there is the health reality. But when I talk on the show, I'm not really talking about what the health reality is for anybody who's, doing face-to-face instruction. I'm leaving that to, the state and federal government. What I am talking about is what the federal government has said the states have to do to fulfill their obligations under the IDEA during school closure. And if districts are shrugging and saying, well, this year's just going to be a wash, that is fine. They can do that, but they're going to meet that mess later, because the federal government has made it very clear that as soon as school reopens, there's going to be an IEP meeting to figure out what the student didn't get, what they're going to get now instead. So I'm just trying to keep everybody afloat to the best of our ability until you can go back to school and have a discussion about what comp ed you're owed. Okay.
And I think that phrase, to the best of your ability, is, I think that's the whole linchpin of it, right? Because different people's interpretations of it. But we do have a viewer who's written in a question.
Sure.
How long do we stick it out with the social distance plan before we switch to homeschool? I know it's going to take time to adjust, and I'm willing to put up with meltdown, but if it's affecting his whole day and will trigger his meltdowns, how long is too long? And she says she has a 5-year-old, stage 2 nonverbal.
Well, I threw out the number 2 months for, and normally when I tell people they need data, I say 1/4. That's 3 to 4 months. I think if you do 2 weeks and you complain that it isn't working, you're going to lose your hearing. Okay, not your auditory capacity, but you would lose in a due process hearing. That's not enough data. Okay, so do as much as you can stand and try to hit the 2-month mark. And while you're trying to hit the 2-month mark, document daily what your concerns are, what's going wrong, and ask for help. One of the options that we don't see being used is parent training. But there's been a lot of stuff on LRP about how, look, if your parents are telling you that they're having these huge problems with distance learning, do some parent training with them and troubleshoot and see if you can solve some of these things. But the truth of the matter is, it's a subjective decision or determination as to whether the district's distance learning plan was reflective of best efforts to try to implement the IEP via distance learning. And the burden of proof is still going to be on the parent to show that the district didn't offer FAPE. So you don't want to have just a bunch of subjective statements about how it didn't work and your kid, wasn't learning. You need to really make them see what the problem is. And I have one family whose son developed a lot of sensory behaviors that he supposedly had grown out of, which she thinks is due to too much screen time. And I said to her, get out your phone, and when these meltdowns are occurring, let's shoot them and send them off, because I think a picture is worth 1,000 words or 100,000 words, whatever the expression is, I can't remember. But I do have continuing guidance that's being given to school districts by school district attorneys about various aspects of this, and so I do have some stuff to read if we have time.
Yes, we do. But let me just say too, that one of the things that you taught me early on, Bonnie, was that everything that I documented made it easier for you as an attorney. And that one of the things that I didn't know, that I guess everybody in the legal world knows, is document, including that basically what you taught me is, don't expect them to read my mind and to put everything in writing. So if he has a bad day and he melts down and I talk to the teacher about it in person or on the phone, to write an email and say, as per our conversation today, when we talked about the meltdown he had in class and you told me that I should try this, I want to let you know that I'm on board and I'm trying it. Because then when you send the email tomorrow saying, just wanted to let you know, I tried it, it didn't work, but I'm going to try it again, so that you create this trail that shows you participated.
You're cooperating, you're trying it, you're not refusing it out of hand. And the other thing is, if you say my son had a 30-minute tantrum, believe me, if you have a 30-minute video or audio clip of a 30-minute tantrum, that's going to be much more powerful than just, oh, he had a 30-minute tantrum.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Nobody believes us when we say our kid has a 30 minutes.
It's so bad. People are like, how could you possibly survive this? Which, the answer is, we do survive, but, you don't come out of doing 15 years of autism triage without, significant impact on how you react to situations and how you live your life. You know,
Amen.
I
I
mean,
do. And before you start to read, Bonnie, I just want to give a shout out that somebody has written in and said, my child just got diagnosed with autism. We just want to welcome you here and hope that you find the messages here of things that will help you, but that a lot of us have gotten through that day. It may not be the best day of your life, but I want to say to you, congratulations, because now you can start to get services to help your child.
yep.
Please write us in and tell us where you're at and how we can help you. But Bonnie, I'm turning it back over to you. You had something you wanted to read to us.
Yeah, I do. And I'm sorry, I'm going to like look to my left here and read because I just didn't print this out. So the question basically is what the districts are talking about internally in terms of things they should be doing to make the distance learning work. So I just, went on their site, Special Ed Connection, and they have a COVID roundup, and I just found a couple of goodies. Okay, so we'll see how far we get. This
Okay.
one talks about, how to support and collaborate with parents who are doing a distance learning plan. Okay, so this is, they're telling, this is like for, let's say you are the special ed director of a public school district, you might go on and you might read this, and it's definitely directed to you. It says, your system to provide remote instruction to students with significant disabilities at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic may not have been as solid as you would have wanted. Indeed, districts had to pivot quickly to deliver instruction in the spring, or to continue to deliver instruction in the spring. As you plan for remote learning during the new school year, put in place additional supports and ideas for collaboration with parents so students, including those with complex communication, behavioral, and motor needs, can make progress. If you can't say this has been working, you need to begin this year with a fresh look. You have to engage in student-centered planning that also brings the parents along. Use the ideas below to ensure students with significant disabilities can meaningfully learn remotely, whether full-time or as part of a hybrid model of in-person and remote instruction. So, I mean, this is basically them having their discussion about how they should be responding to us, right? Okay, so the first thing they say is discuss the learning environment at home. So don't run from this question. Discuss it with parents. Bring teachers, related service providers, and parents together on a video conference to discuss what the parent needs to create a supportive environment for the student to learn at home and how the parent can access those items. A student with complex needs may benefit from adaptive seating to learn comfortably at a desk or table, a room free of visual distractions, including non-therapeutic pets, so the student can more easily focus, a visual activity schedule with pictures and words posted on a whiteboard or other large space that offers step-by-step information on what the student can expect to do during the day. Offer concrete supports. Send home graphic organizers and social stories to help the student navigate lessons. Also make choice boards available online or in print to promote student engagement. If your school adopts a hybrid model of in-person and remote learning, make sure what you send home is identical to what you are using in school with the student to maintain continuity. Assess assistive technology use. Do not flood the student with picture symbols on his tablet or laptop without fully reviewing what vocabulary he knows. Sometimes we provide an iPad with 32 icons and the student only knows 6. That's overwhelming. Work with the parent on what the student knows and needs to know so that his work on tasks while learning is student initiated and not adult manipulated wherever possible. You may want to send home a device pre-programmed with your voice with just a few choices for answers, such as yes or no, if the student typically points or presses a button to respond to questions. Can I keep going? Or do you have?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we can go.
Okay, incorporate multimedia techniques. Ensure virtual lessons incorporate multimedia elements such as colorful pictures and videos, music and interactive games. For example, invite the student to press a button to indicate which choice is a character in a story she's reading. You can move the cursor over the options to help the student choose, or you can share your screen and highlight the options as you would in person. You may want to put a bag of objects together, such as foam, dice, and marbles, for the student to use at home while you engage her in a slide presentation, and use the same objects to ask her questions and see what she knows. Okay, here's the last one.
Okay.
Let student learn from mistakes. Don't be afraid to correct the student remotely. If you ask a student to count out 5 marbles and the student continues to count out marbles beyond 5, make sure you stop the student and say, no, this is 5. Just be sure you're not over prompting and you're giving the student time to think. For example, if you ask a student to read aloud the correct word on the screen out of 3 options, and the student doesn't read it aloud right away, wait a little bit before you prompt the student with the correct response. You want to use the system of least prompts, she said. Okay.
This is all great advice. And I guess my question is, what, because this is a closed site, do you have to subscribe? Do all teachers have access to this?
I don't know whether teachers have it through their districts or whether it's just special ed administrators. I don't really know who it is, but if you guys want to, fiddle around with this, go to Special Ed Connection and they'll probably give you a trial.
There you go.
Yeah.
Because these are great, these are always great tips that you share with us from this website. And I want to hear stories of parents that have staff that are utilizing this, right?
Yeah,
it's
right.
not what we're hearing.
Right. No, it's not what we're hearing. So I don't know. I just know that it's a very well subscribed to service. The other one that I have, I'm just going to send to you, I think, unless we have a few more minutes.
No, we've got time.
Okay. So this one is called, Does the Pandemic Impact IEP Team Decisions to Exit Students from Special Education? So this is another way of talking about the same thing, which is the trigger for compensatory education that is the pandemic, right? I mean, so the question is, are you going to get extra time because you were a 12th grader and you were supposed to graduate this year with a high school diploma, but you really didn't get anything done for the last 3 months of school and fall isn't looking too much better. So this is from How Do I Advise My Clients? So this is like sort of what you're talking about. It says, this is a special feature of Special Ed Connection that provides expert opinions from attorneys and education consultants for overcoming common problems and core challenges in the field. Each installment includes insights from multiple stakeholders, offering you a variety of perspectives to strengthen your efforts to serve students with disabilities. The COVID-19 outbreak is causing educators to consider how to restructure special education services while maintaining compliance with the IDEA. One important activity that requires comprehensive review during this time is how and when to terminate a student's IEP services before the student graduates or ages out of special ed eligibility. Should districts even consider exiting students with disabilities during the pandemic? If they do, what additional considerations must be made given the unprecedented extended school closures? So then they interview different people about this and give their answers. So the first guy they talked to is a lawyer in Texas, in Dallas, Texas. And he says, in almost all situations, I would not recommend exiting a student from special education during the pandemic. Students exit, exiting a student who demonstrated a continued need for special education prior to the pandemic solely based on data collected during remote learning is not a best practice and could potentially result in significant liability for the school district. However, in rare circumstances where the district has strong data from early in the school year supporting the exit, and the data obtained during remote learning bolsters the position and there's agreement from the parents, it may be acceptable for the student to be exited from special education so long as the additional requirements for exiting the student can also be met. I suggest making these considerations before exiting a student. Complete an evaluation in all areas of suspected disability to determine that the student is no longer a child with a disability. The school district will need to determine whether assessments can be safely conducted. It is possible that the determination can be made through a review of records, but only if there's enough current data to document the student's present levels of academic achievement and performance to recognize that the child is no longer a child with a disability and determine the student no longer needs special education and related services. However, it is unlikely that a district will have current data that is both complete and accurate given the unique learning environments that these students have experienced since March. Any decision regarding exiting a student from special education must be made by the IEP committee together. Given the current health crisis, the IEP committee will likely need to meet virtually. However, the school district needs to make sure that every member of the IEP committee has access to the meeting. COVID-19 is no excuse. In this situation, it's important to consider whether the student continues to have needs that should be met through a Section 504 plan in lieu of an exit. This may help minimize any challenges the student might face upon returning to campus without any of their previous special education supports in place. So this is a partner in this firm. And then they go on and they asked another partner in another firm what he thought. I don't think we need to read that, but I'm going to forward both of these to you, Shannon, so you can share them with people. But the point is, isn't it interesting that when people are behind closed doors, they are acknowledging that they probably don't have good data to support exiting a student from special education, and that there's almost no circumstances in which it's not going to be extremely risky to do it.
Well, and for me, this is like I would say to every caregiver out there that this is not the year to exit your child from their IEP. Like, just, and don't let anybody steamroll that to happen. But what is also interesting to me is that within the confines of that, they're admitting that they don't have good data. But if we're just looking at kids that know we're not looking to exit from the IEP, they tell us, oh, we know exactly what we're doing. We have this well in hand, and the kids are making progress. And I'm just like doing a lot of this.
Well, yeah, it's what they said at IEP meetings when, back when we weren't doing distance learning, and we didn't agree with that either. But I think this also circles back to the beginning of the conversation where, if the school district's going to bring forward data about how great you did during your distance learning program, don't you want to have data that shows that actually you were the one on the ground? This is where the whole thing is reversed. Parent is now the one on the ground with the face-to-face access to the child.
Yes.
And so that data should be very, credible data, because they're closer, in than the district is. So there are multiple reasons why you need to document this. It's your insurance policy for a rainy day, And
I gotta say, I think that parents need to document it on both sides. The parents, because we have many parents who have written in and said, my child just made more progress with us at home being his facilitator for what you're teaching than he does at school. So we're afraid, what are you actually doing at school? And I think that those parents need to be documenting that. And then we have the parents on the other side of the coin where, their kid, they've got no help support, and they set the computer up in front of their kid, and the parent is like, if I can't get him to sit there and listen to what you're saying. And I feel for those parents. I feel for everybody. Document.
And recall that in California, until relatively recently, districts were able to limit or completely block having an outside evaluator come into the classroom to see what's really going on. And that's because they knew that if that observation didn't occur, it was going to be very hard for the expert to testify credibly in a due process hearing. So, school observations of what's really going on in the classroom are very powerful. And maybe this is something we should talk about next week, but sort of the thumbnail sketch of the concept would be, what are outside professionals doing in order to conduct meaningful assessments during COVID? What is their process, and how are they going into people's homes and observing their distance learning? What are they doing, and how are they going to handle the fact that they aren't going to have an in-person, school observation, which I'm sure the districts are quite happy about, frankly.
I sort of want to make the case for everybody, at least. I don't know for everyone whether you can be in the room while your child is going to school. That may not be the right thing for everyone, but you could at least set up your phone on one of those crazy little tripods that are available everywhere now.
Yeah,
videotape one session.
I hate to say this because it's going to fall into the hands that are going to probably, I'm going to be like, oh, I should have kept that a secret. But one client pointed out to me that the district wouldn't let her behavioral team in the home. And so She has her insurance funded ABA team coming into the home during school time via another Zoom on another computer.
Yeah. And of course, there are all kinds of issues that everybody is trying to work out with that. I think people have to be very careful because
Well, but
that,
they're not seeing any faces. All they have is access to the audio.
right. But some insurance providers have said, yes, we will pay for that. We will fund that. Others are on the fence about it. And I think everybody
Ah,
wants to make
I
sure
was,
that they know where the
I
money is.
see. I was thinking about it more from the standpoint of the confidentiality,
Oh,
right?
well, there's that
Yeah,
too.
the school district is saying there are other children on the Zoom call and their parents didn't give permission.
Listen, I wish I'm trying to get a movement where parents turn their kids' cameras on, and parents are telling me, "Oh no, we don't want the cameras on for various and sundry reasons." And as a former teacher, I got to tell you, I think distance learning for our kids is a hard climb to begin with. But if the cameras aren't
Yeah,
on,
really.
and we're finding out that there's all these Luddites that are teaching. I had a parent who was telling me the other day that it's a special ed class and the teacher is not muting any of them. So there's 12 kids in the class stimming and talking the whole time while she is trying to teach. She doesn't know how to turn off their mics. And I was like, oh, this is horrible.
It's hard.
Uh, I did tell that parent, you need to videotape and go back to the district and say, this is what you're giving my child. This, because it's a crazy, crazy world. Hey, we're saying hello to the folks who are writing in from Savannah, Georgia. Thank you for joining us. We are out of time, unfortunately, but Bonnie, I want to thank you for being here. Tell them again about Tollner Law Offices.
Tollner Law Offices, Tollner. If you want to have a complimentary consultation, go to our website and fill in the paperwork, and we'll set that up for you if you're in the state of California. If you're not in the state of California, there's other information on the website that I think will be useful to you. So check that out. I will forward the 2 source references to you, Shannon, when we
Awesome.
get off the
Thank
call,
you.
and then you can share them with people.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you so much, and thank everybody at Tollner Law Offices for lending us to you for this hour.
Listen, we're
And
all going through this together, right? We're doing our best. We're figuring it out. We're taking it one day at a time. We're figuring it out.
we appreciate you holding hands with us while we wade through the muck.
Hey,
You're the best.
each other up. Thank you, Shannon.
Hey,
Thank
thanks
you
for
so
watching
much.
Autism Live. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.